Shalom, Yeladim. Did you remember what to say? When I say Shalom, Yeladim, you say Shalom, Rabboni. Let's try it again. Are you ready? Shalom, Yeladim. Okay, well, we're finally here. We've worked really hard. We've left our chicken in the natron solution for a long time. We wrapped it up. You and I did that together. Okay? All the wrappings are dry. And finally, our mummy is ready for burial. So, before I take the shroud off and show you what our mummy finally looks like, let's review. Do you remember why Egyptians want to turn their beloved pharaohs and other wealthy relatives who die into mummies? Who can remember that? Let's think. Now, they didn't want the body of their beloved relatives to decay, right? So they covered it in natron. And natron is a lot like baking soda mixed with salt, okay? And it sucks out the water, okay, from the body, and that keeps the bacteria from decaying the corpse. And it can make it last for a long time. Some mummies have lasted over 1,000 years. But still, why do they want their beloved relatives' bodies to last for so long? Well, remember that the Egyptians believe that inside of our bodies is the Ka. That's what you or I might call the soul or the spirit. Now, the Ka, after death, has to travel a long way and get to the land of the Duat. Do you remember that word? Duat. It sounds funny. It's the Egyptian word for the land where Osiris and Isis are ruling over all the dead souls, or the Ka, okay, of previous Egyptians who've died and gone there. But not everyone makes it, okay? The only way for one of these souls to make it into that next life, into the Duat, is to have their body mummified like an anchor, okay? Think of it like an anchor, or maybe even a rudder on a ship, okay? You remember, you've seen people sailing ships with the big wheels like this, and they can turn huge ships with the wheel. That wheel is connected to a rudder. It's underneath the water, and it can turn a huge ship, okay? Without that rudder, the ship would just go flying off in the ocean. Same is true for these mummies. If the body decays and goes back into the earth and turns into food for worms and whatever, it's like a ship with no rudder, just off into the ocean. It's gone forever and doesn't get to find its resting place in the Duat. Okay, so they don't want that to happen, so they turn it into a mummy, okay, and that way the Ka of their beloved can make it into the afterlife. Now remember, even to make it that far, it's no guarantee, okay, because you have to go with Amut, right? You have to go before the scales of Ma'at. You remember that? Place the heart onto the scale, and the feather of Ma'at is on the other side. And if the heart is heavier, and you get eaten up by that beast sitting there that was like part hippo, part alligator, part lion, probably part something else. It's a terrible, fearsome beast. So just gobble up the Ka right there. Okay, so this is step one. But if the person wasn't a very righteous person, they'll never make it on. Now, you and I, we know that's not going to work, right? If you measured our hearts against the justice of Hashem, do you remember how I say Hashem instead of God? Okay, because Hashem means the name. If you and I were to weigh our hearts against the justice of Hashem, no one would stand, would they? No one would ever make it into his presence. We rely on the mercy and the forgiveness of Hashem. It's the only way that we could ever be hoped to receive into his presence. But I digress. You are probably ready to see our chicken. Are you? Now, I hope all of you have been studying hard, even in these strange times where you are living at home. Because remember that being a professional maker of mummies is no small task. It is a greatly honored profession. And the Jews, those of us who are Jews who are privileged to have this job, we treasure it highly. And we have the highest standards. So work hard, study carefully. Are you ready to see? Here goes. There it is. This is, I believe we named him Amen Rustufu. You can see how skinnier chicken is than when we first started. It's not very heavy. I can hold it very lightly. It's stiff though. You want to see something funny? Watch this. Look at that. I can hold the mummy by the chicken's neck. That's because the whole thing, now if this were a real subject, I would never do that. It's very disrespectful. Okay, but it's just a chicken. Okay. So, I can hold like this. I can't even bend it. It's just so tough. Now, you want to hear what it sounds like? Hold on. Here it is. Look at that. Close-up view. Listen. You hear that knocking? That's right. It's hard as a rock and hollow on the inside. Look at there. The one thing you can't have on your side is the smell. It doesn't smell so good, okay? It's still a little bit stinky, but not too bad. Totally can take it because I'm a professional. Okay, great. Now, if this were a real subject, okay, you'd have to sit there and wait while the priests come in. Now, the priests would come in and they'd have all these things, these amulets. See it there? These aren't real amulets. But you get the idea, right? And they would put them all, they would wrap them in there actually. The priests would also say all these spells. They would stand over there and they would open up their papyrus and they would, whoa, singing these things. And they believed that all that magic and nonsense sent the Ka, off into the next life. Okay? We don't do that. We worship Hashem. But, okay. They would wrap it up and then they would put it into, of course, the sarcophagus. You want to see what a sarcophagus might look like a little bit? Now this one is far too small for our subject, as you can see. I have to put it off. But here's the shape. They're often shaped like this, okay? Where the head comes up onto this side and the shoulders are here. Okay. Here's the inside. Now this, you'll notice, in the model I have here, there are handles. These are for carrying the sarcophagus and the mummy inside great distances, okay? Because once the mummy is fully made, once the priest has said all of his incantations, then the procession must begin. Now, you probably know, not many people are mummified in ancient Egypt, okay? Because it is so expensive. Not only is it expensive to hire a professional like Rabboni, okay, but it is also professional to hire people to come along for your procession, to march along to the final resting place. You see, there are the priests who come along to say the incantations. There are professional mourners and weepers, people who come to these parades of the dead and they just cry and they weep. It's amazing. I've never seen anything like it. They can cry on command. And, of course, there's going to be music, there's going to be dancing, okay? There's going to be a little bit of sadness, a little bit of happiness, all together. And you've got to pay all of those people to march along with you to the final resting place. It is very expensive. Not many can do it. Elishama always offers a discount, though, for his people. So if you need it, you come to me. All right. Well, I bet you're wondering where they take these mummies. Where do they place them? Well, I have a short video to show you that will explain that. So stay tuned.
Shalom, Yaladim, and welcome to the wondrous land of Egypt. My name is Obadiah, and I will be guiding you on a journey through these mystical lands. Elishama has told me that you are looking for a place to bury a mummy. Well, you're in luck. I have just the place for you. This is a mastaba, which means eternal house in Egyptian, and deep beneath its surfaces hides the burial ground of the ancient Egyptians. Notice the flat roofing and its rectangular shape. These buildings were created in the pre-dynastic era for high officials and royalty, and they continued to be made into the early dynastic period and the Old Kingdom. These buildings are quite tall, some being up to 30 feet tall. They are constructed using mud brick that has been left out in the sun to harden. See that opening? That is where priests and family members would bring the offerings for the souls of the deceased. Deep within the mastaba is a secret chamber called a serdab, used to house items important for the afterlife, such as grains, clothes, and other precious items. But perhaps you're looking for something a bit more modern. Well then, come with me. These are the Egyptian pyramids, most notable for their triangular sides and square bottom. The buildings were created as tombs for pharaohs during the Old and Middle Kingdoms. These pyramids are generally much bigger than the mastabas, with the Great Pyramid being 480 feet tall. These pyramids were very difficult to build, requiring slaves to transport limestone all the way from the Nile River, using special sleds to drag them across the desert. They used limestone for bricks so that the pyramids would shine when in the sun, and its shape is made to look like sun rays coming down from the sky. To be honest, we don't really know how these amazing buildings were created. Many believe that they used ramps to slide the bricks into position, while others believe they used logs to leverage each brick up each step. Whatever the case, these buildings are very impressive, and must have taken a lot of manpower. But maybe you seek something even more luxurious. Come, I have something grand to show you. This is the Valley of the Kings, which sits on the western bank of the Nile River. For nearly 500 years, pharaohs of the New Kingdom excavated tombs out of the side of this limestone valley. These tombs consist of winding corridors representing the descending path into the underworld. Another feature of these tombs is the well, which was a barrier to keep waters from flooding the lower parts of the tombs. The inner walls of the tombs are lined with many religious images depicting the sun god's journey into the underworld. Each barrier left with it equipment that would provide a comfortable afterlife. Also present were the tools to enact magic rituals. Some pharaohs buried with them items that were special to them when they were in the land of the living. King Tutankhamun buried with him his favorite sandals. Well, young ones, I hope you have learned much from our journey. Of course, there is much more to be learned of the majesty of Egypt. I hope to see you again soon. Farewell and safe travels.
Well, wasn't that interesting? From the Great Pyramids to caves in the walls in the valley. Well, that is because those hiding places are necessary because many of these Egyptians are buried with great wealth. They believe that they take this wealth on with them to the Duat. Okay? Elishama does not believe that. Okay? We do not believe that you can take these things with you. Right? You may be wondering, why then does Elishama sometimes involve his own people? Why would a Jewish man or woman ever want to be made into a mummy? I will tell you. You see, our great father, Joseph, who came to this land long ago, who in fact was a ruler alongside the great Pharaoh. In those days, our people were greatly honored, not like today when they are treated like slaves. Joseph died in the land of Egypt along with his father. He wanted to be made into a mummy for this reason, because he knew that someday God would come along and he would take his people out of Egypt and send them on over to the promised land, the land of Canaan that was promised to Abraham many, many generations ago. So Joseph and his father were made mummies so that they could be carried away from Egypt one day. Their bones would be taken away from Egypt over to the promised land, and so that all the people would know that God was faithful, that he had been faithful to the very, very end. Isn't that good news? Hashem is faithful. He never breaks his promises. Even though my people and I have been here in Egypt for a long time, and even though we are waiting and waiting to go back to our home, we know Hashem always keeps his promises. And our brother Joseph, who died so many years ago, he knew it too. And that is why he became a mummy, so that one day his body will be carried over and it will shine like the sun as a symbol of Hashem's faithfulness. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this lesson on embalming. I hope you have paid close attention, and perhaps some of you one day will be joining Elishama in the honorable profession of Egyptian mummy making. Bye now. Shalom.